It's weird getting used to all the things. Microphones, people. It's hard. But there's the title, Shift Happens. It was funnier when I wrote it, I admit. But hold on, coffee. And shift does, in fact, happen. The definition of shift: to move or cause to move, to change. And a lot of times when we start talking about change, people get tense. They don't like it. We have our cocoon. We like for our cocoon to stay the way it is. We don't like for it to change. Even though, if you watch nature, the cocoon has to change so that the butterfly can come out. Mm-hmm. Change is a part of life. It's a part of the process. And here at Thrive, the whole time we've been doing Thrive, there have been the Thrive 3. Do you know what they are? The Thrive 3. We will be people who are seeking. We will have healthy relationships with one another, and we will love all. That's the Thrive 3. And I was thinking about what it means to really love people and to really be in healthy relationship with people. And there's so much to that. It's work. Maintaining good, healthy relationships, it takes work. And some of the work that we have to do to maintain healthy relationships is we have to be honest. And sometimes being honest makes us go, I don't want to. I would rather not. How about I just go stand in the corner and we pretend I have nothing to say? Let's do it that way. But honesty and truthfulness and faithfulness, these are all things that contribute to healthy relationships. And it's how we show our deep love and appreciation and respect for one another. If I'm most honest with you, I must truly love you. Because it would be really easy to lie to you, right? Mm-hmm. Most of the time. But when you really love somebody, you can't lie. You have to be honest. Amen. Mm-hmm. So in all honesty, shift happens. Mm-hmm. It just does. Change happens. And that's the truth. And when I was thinking about shifting and changing, I couldn't help but start thinking about those disciples. I mean, think about those dudes. Think about a clock. Okay, now. They're in their boats. They're fishing. They know nothing about this man named Jesus. They're fishing. Jesus sees them and says, hey, come follow me. Now, one of the people that was said to was Peter. So Peter goes, come follow him. Okay. And Peter dropped his nets and Peter ran to follow Jesus. Remember that part, because that was shift number 1. Peter went from fisher dude to follower. Like that. It was a shift. And when Peter shifted, not only did Peter leave behind, this is how I make a living, Peter left behind everything he knew. Because the village, that was home. He fished there, he lived there, his friends were there. Jesus said, come follow me. And Peter said, okay. And ran to follow Jesus and left everything behind. That was a big shift, was it not? Mm-hmm. It was huge. Now keep thinking about Peter, because Peter has several shifts. But the next one I'm going to talk about, we've talked about often. It comes down to the time. Jesus has already told him, you're going to deny me 3 times. Peter's like, nuh-uh, not me. So it happens. They come, they take Jesus. What does Peter do? 3 times Peter denies knowing Jesus. And Peter runs and hides. Because Peter feels fear. So his first shift, he ran to Jesus. His next shift that we're discussing, he runs from Jesus. But then what happens to Peter? Well, we go through, these poor disciples, y'all, they went through some shifts. They went and they ran and they followed, then they had to deal with crowds and hungry people, and they had to figure out how to feed the hungry people. And then there was all these lepers wanting to come up and touch them and stuff, and they didn't want to deal with that. They were thrown into that environment. They lived through that environment, and then Jesus goes, oh, by the way, they're going to kill me. So then they go through the crucifixion, the resurrection, and they're like, wow, we used to be just fisher people. We used to live over there in the village and just fish. I'm thinking fishing sounds really good right about now, boys. So they go through all of that, and Peter has another shift, but the shift comes when Jesus appears to Peter and the disciples again. After resurrection, Jesus shows up and says, don't be afraid, it's me. I'm here. So Peter shifts again, because then Peter's like, woohoo, Jesus. Sorry I ran and hid. Sorry I denied knowing you. We're good, right? And so they were able to commune with Jesus a little longer. And then another shift, the ascension happens. And at the point of ascension, that's when Jesus leaves them forever. In physical form, Jesus, poof, gone. So Peter shifts again. Now let's go back. First he was a fisherman. Then he was a follower. Then he was a chicken. Peter now becomes a leader. Peter is listed as one of the founding fathers of Christianity. In the Catholic Church, he gets a lot of pomp and circumstance, because he went on to share what he had learned. And there's a cartoon that has been going around, and I think it was the Naked Pastor who drew it. In one of the little comic strip boxes, there's these three guys standing there, and they're looking up because, Jesus done went. And they're like, okay, so what is it we're supposed to tell everybody? And then the other one goes, love God, love each other, that's it. And the third one goes, we can't mess that up. Next frame, whole bunch of people. Oh, well, never mind. We can mess that up. It was a simple thing. Jesus came and he said, I just want to teach y'all how to have healthy relationships. I want to teach you how to love one another. I want to teach you what this is really supposed to be about and what it's supposed to be like, because what you've done is you've taken it and you've made it so convoluted and complicated. And you keep pushing people away when you should really be bringing people in. And honestly, how many thousands of years later, and the message is still the same. We keep making it so much more complicated, when all it's really about is loving one another. And the thing that Peter's life also shows is that we all react differently depending on the situation. Peter was not consistent. He ran to Jesus, and then he ran from Jesus. And then he became a leader that talked about Jesus a lot. The only consistent piece is the running. The rest of it was different. So shift happens. And when it happens, don't beat yourself up. If one time a shift occurs and you're like, oh, I just got to go to bed and stay in bed for a day or two, that's okay. You got to get up eventually. Then the next time a change comes, you might not feel that way. The next time change comes, you might be like, you know what? I'm digging in. I'm fixing to get to work and figure this out. I'm going to fix this. All valid reactions. But every person will respond to change, to the shift, differently. Mm-hmm. We will each have different emotions. We will each go through different processes of dealing with our emotions and our thought patterns when change hits us. And it's funny, I've been looking at videos, old videos. First thing I noticed is, oh my God, I used to have a neck. Y'all heard that joke before church. I used to have like a little skinny neck. I like food too much. But one of the things that was consistent, looking at the videos, which was not my body shape, but the consistency was this. You know what we talk a lot about? Love. You know what else we talk a lot about? Change. I did not realize how much we talk about change here. But we have several sermon videos where we talk about change. So the shifts happen and we react. The shifts happen and sometimes we're like Frodo in Fellowship of the Ring. Frodo said to Gandalf, I wish it need not have happened in my time. So do I, said Gandalf. And so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time given us. Sometimes I think Gandalf and Frodo are way smarter than me. What do we do with the time that we've been given? What have we done with the time that we've been given? And when the shifts and the changes happen, what is our choice? Some people think it just happens to me and I don't get to participate. I don't get to have anything to do with it. But that's not exactly true. If you've been here a long time, you know one of my very favorite scriptures. Joshua 1:2. My servant Moses is dead. Now get going. And what that says to me is that when the change happens and the shift happens, we have to move. It's dictated. Not just because it says my servant Moses is dead, get going, but because in the moment, we're like Frodo. I wish it didn't happen. And Gandalf is going, yeah, but it did, so now we have to choose. What do we do now? And that's how it is for all of us. No matter that we look different and handle it different, it's still the same. The shift happens and you have to have something happen yourself. You have to move. It could be you move from your chair to your bed. It could be you move from one belief system to another belief system. It could mean you move from one town to another town. It could mean all kinds of things. But what it does say to me is that when change comes, we get to choose how we move through it. And there's always hope. Because look at Peter. Fisherman, follower, deserter, leader. If he had stayed on the boat, I wouldn't be standing here in 2021 talking about him. Most likely. But he made a choice. And his choice led to him moving. When the shift happens, we have to choose. What do we do? Who do we become? What does that look like? And how do we maneuver it? And how well do we love each other through it? Because that's very important. And the great thing about changing, that butterfly, and to go with the Harry Potter stuff, the phoenix up out of the ashes. Change can be scary, but it can also be so beautiful. And the interesting thing about change is that while our world changes and our lives change, holy does not change. Amen. Malachi 3:6. I wholly do not change, and therefore you, my people, are not destroyed. In the midst of change, we can feel like we're destroyed, it's all over, we're shipwrecked, it's the end of the world. But it's not. Because the one who calls you into love and the one who calls you into being love to all people does not change. Stays the same and loves you and encourages you to keep loving everywhere you go. And all the people said, Amen. Amen. And so it is.